Welcome back to my channel, Navigating Meta. Oh, messed that up. Navigating Midlife Live. I was about to say menopause, but same thing for women anyway. So welcome back. Painful sex during the menopause transition. Why it happens and what can help. This is a topic that I'm pretty passionate about because I feel that it's not talked about often enough. And especially if a woman is going into, and it doesn't matter what kind of practitioner, there's a lot of practitioners that are not comfortable talking about sex and how sex changes during menopause. And so, if a woman is going in to talk to somebody that she trusts or feels comfortable with, she's looking for guidance and not much is said, it leaves her feeling quite lost and not sure what to do. And for some women, it can actually feel like they are very alone, that maybe it's just them, that there's something wrong with them. And in some cases, there are women who do not discuss it with anybody, and they just suffer through it because that's what they feel they need to do, because they just don't discuss those types of private and very personal conversations. So I do want to, I guess the first thing I want to say is there is nothing wrong with you. These are normal symptoms that you will feel during the transition through menopause. It can start in early menopause, or I'm sorry, early perimenopause. In fact, for me, excuse me, for me, it actually started happening um, right around, I guess, age, well, yeah, no, I had to think back about that for a second. I had to think about what age I was, but yeah, I was in early perimenopause, so right around age 46, 47, somewhere around there. And I noticed that my natural lubrication wasn't as plentiful. And it's interesting because the partner that I was with at the time, who I was dating, made me feel very self-conscious about it. And rather than sit down and talk about it as a couple, he just basically said, "Well, you've got to do something about that because sex with you isn't pleasurable for me anymore because there's not as much lubrication." And that made me feel very, very insecure about my sexuality at that point in time. And of course, I went to my doctor to talk about it, and my doctor gave me uh, an estrogen based suppository to help with that. And that caused further complications. I will talk about that a little bit later on. But it was a very unsettling time for me because I felt very lost. Here's my partner sort of rejecting me. I wanted to figure things out, but it was kind of like, you figure it out so that I can start to enjoy sex with you again. So, anyway, needless to say, I didn't stay with him too long. Um, the other part of it is, even though you might have a very understanding partner, they might not know what to say or how to talk about it or how to approach the subject with you. So, it can be very uncomfortable, and, you know, other than, the odd one, your partner does care. And, you know, they may be facing their own physiological changes at the same time. So it is something that it can be uncomfortable to sit down and talk about. We're apparently just supposed to know how things work. And, we're just supposed to kind of go with the flow. But it is something that does need time to sit down, talk about, and not in the heat of the moment when things aren't working well. Um, so the biggest thing I want you to know is that there is nothing wrong with you. It is normal, but there are solutions, and there are solutions beyond hormone-based solutions. So I mentioned that getting the hormone-based suppository to help to increase my natural lubrication in my vagina uh, ended up causing a lot of issues for me. And the reason for me specifically was that for many years I had had lower levels of progesterone, so higher levels of estrogen. In fact, to the point where I had to have a very large fibroid removed from my uterus. So even though that fibroid had been removed, my body still had an excess of estrogen as compared to the amount of progesterone. So now I'm in early perimenopause, and my progesterone is starting to change further. I was still more estrogen dominant. So adding in this estrogen based suppository added a lot of complications to me, to the point where it was almost recommended that I was going to need a complete hysterectomy. And I just said, no, no, let's change some things here. Of course, ended the relationship with that partner, and I stopped using the lubrication or the suppository, and things started to settle down. But it was very unsettling because my gynecologist wasn't really giving me answers as to why this was happening. Sort of had to figure things out on my own. And as I say, just by stopping the suppository, things started to settle down. And then I was bit by bit getting further into menopause. So my estrogen levels started to drop more. And it just made things more normalized in my body. So, but it can be a very scary situation. So there are women, and that was actually one of the reasons why I became very hesitant about types of hormone therapy without being better educated. And there are many women that don't want to turn to hormone based options for various reasons. Maybe they've previously had cancer, or that's just not something that they want to utilize. So this is where it's very important to be informed and have options of what you can use to help with the lubrication, so that you can stay sexually active. And there are great options out there, and I'm going to share my favorite in a second. So yes, there are options. So as I mentioned, so unfortunately, estrogen is this, kind of, in a way, it, facilitates so much of who we are as a woman, with respect to our skin texture, our hair, our, the overall natural lubrication, even just lubrication in general within our bodies, right? Our eyes, our joints. Estrogen is a major player in our body. And so this is why a lot of women will choose to go on hormone therapy because of, not wanting to experience those major changes. And I totally get that. And of course, I've talked about hormone therapy before, and I've done a video on that before, and I can link that in the description below if you want to watch that video. So estrogen is a major player. Then there's also our testosterone. Women do have testosterone along with estrogen and progesterone. So testosterone is, of course, our hormone that helps with our libido. It also helps with being more motivated, energized. So testosterone is important as well too, and it does start to change in menopause as well too. Uh, in a woman who's prior to menopause, testosterone is partially created in the sex organs, but then part of it is also created in our adrenal glands. So because our adrenal glands really aren't changing when we go into menopause, other than the fact that they are continuing to produce the hormones that they produced before, we still do have some testosterone in our body, just not as much. So this is where I like to say that our thoughts about sex, I'm not going to say our attitude towards sex, maybe to a certain extent our attitude, but our thoughts about sex and how we think about sex and intimacy and how we want to connect with our partner. So I like to refer it to, rather than, changing, I like to say that our thoughts about sex and intimacy has matured. It's now met who we are as this woman going through the stages of menopause, perimenopause, of course, the menopause, and then postmenopause. And all of the advice that I'm giving is valid for all of those stages of menopause, as far as the things that you can use and stuff like that. Of course, how you're experiencing things will change as you go along. So I like to say that our sexuality during that time is maturing. It's becoming maybe more us as to who we are at that point, or how we're changing, how we're seeing ourselves. And it was interesting because I kept thinking to myself, there's something different, when I want to be intimate with somebody. I just feel different about it now. My thought patterns seem to be different. I connect with that person in a different way. And I kept thinking this. And then one day I was at my favorite bookstore here in Vancouver, Banyan Books. And I was, looking around and came across this book called Tantric Sex and Menopause. And the author is Diane Richardson. And of course, when you say tantric, there's a lot of people that go, no, that's not me. I can't. No, that's a little bit too woo woo. I can't go there. That's not something I'm interested in. But I would really like to recommend this book. I do highly recommend this book, and I do recommend it to my clients. And here's the reason why: because she approaches it in such a different way. And I started reading it and I thought, oh my gosh, it's like this woman is reading my thoughts. She knows exactly what I was looking for. And the part that made me so interested in the book, and I read it cover to cover, was that as women start to go through the stages of menopause, we're looking to connect on more of an emotional basis rather than that straight sexual desire, that burning desire, that libido that we used to have when we were younger. Now it's more of, you want to have an engaging conversation with your partner. You want to know that you're connected to them before you may actually start, being interested in having sex. It's not kind of like, hey, baby, the raised brows and the wink wink, and, you kind of get turned on. All of that has changed. It's more of wanting to know that your partner's truly interested in you, not just you as this sexual being. And sometimes that does come through communication. So the communication has to change a little bit. But I do highly recommend this book. It is very good, very interesting, and it would also give you really good talking points for discussion with your partner. And previously as well too, I had Amy Culler on as a guest, and we talked about intimacy. Of course, she's an intimacy coach, so she's got great tips for men and women as well too. And also her book, The Huddle Zone, is very helpful. So there's a couple of really helpful things that you can access. And of course, they're available in electronic format. You might even find one or two of them on Audible. I don't know if Amy's book is on Audible, but I know it's in electronic format on Amazon. So those are great options to kind of guide you, give you something to, I guess, just give you maybe some hope or just give you more information about this transition that you're going through and some of the thoughts that you might have, some of the feelings that you might have. I know for me, that is very comforting when I'm able to read something and it has it has information in there of things that I've been thinking. So anyway, let's carry on. So, one of the things that an old comment is use it or lose it. And it is so true. But this is where it can become difficult because the moment a woman starts to experience more dryness, sex isn't as comfortable, there may be apprehension to have sex as often. And the less that we have it, the more that our vagina changes because the estrogen is changing. The skin isn't as, I guess, elastic. It isn't as elastic. And our vagina can start to change as far as it becomes a little tighter because the muscles change. So the overall experience, I've actually had women say to me, I think I've turned into a virgin. My partner has difficulty entering me and it's very painful, which a lot of people associate back to the very first time that they had intercourse. So, sometimes do you want to really go to your doctor and say, I think I've turned into a virgin? You don't know what the reaction is going to be from your doctor. And, you might feel silly saying that things feel really tight. So this is where it is important to know that there are other options as well too. So one of the things that I recommend highly, and it is my absolute favorite lube, it is called Sutil Luxe. There's Luxe down at the bottom. This is an excellent product. It is the first product that I have found that feels like my own natural lubrication. It has a very beautiful feel to it. It doesn't get sticky or sort of dry out because it has hyaluronic acid in it. It is something that you can order online, whether you're in Canada or the US. I'm not sure, if somebody's in Europe, whether you would have access to it or not. But Canada and the US, I know it can be ordered. It's actually a Canadian company located on Vancouver Island. So I thought that was very cool. But the ingredients are very, very clean. There's nothing weird in here. I have been using this product now for, let's see, I've probably been using the product now at least 2 years, maybe longer. It was something that I was recommended to me by a woman that I spoke to at one of the local stores here that deals with sex toys and sex products and stuff like that. It's called Women's Wear, and it's an excellent store. And she's the one that told me about it, and I've been using it ever since. So I highly, highly recommend that. So how do you start this process? Well, this is where, using the lubrication and, sometimes you have to start the process on your own, depending on whether your partner is open to that. I know sometimes there are men that it's just like, I don't want to go there. I'm not comfortable with going there. And that's kind of unfortunate, but you kind of have to honor what they're saying. So sometimes we have to start this process on our own. So using it, personally, you could use it with a toy. And this is where, as well, I think that it's really important that you become knowledgeable on the different types of toys or apparatuses, whatever you want to call them, that are available and how you can use them. I found one that I really, really love. It's, I think the company is NS Novelties, and the one that I use is the Colors line, and it's spelled Colors the Canadian way, COLOURS. And it's one that I prefer. I found that it was very easy to work with and far less painful than something that was more rigid. So I really, I found it very, very easy, not painful. But you have to start slowly. And this is the whole thing, is starting slow, giving yourself time. Don't force your situation. Now, if you have a partner who is willing to explore and wants to do this process with you, this is where the communication is going to be really, really important. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say stop. It hurts. It's okay to say, let's, go a little slower. Sex should not hurt. It should not be painful. And as women, we do have the right to say this. And yes, in some cases, our partners may be a little offended or a little hurt, but it's not about them. It's about you and what's comfortable for you. And keeping the lines of communication open, saying this is something that it'll take time, but it will come back. And I guarantee you, it will come back. So you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm a single woman. I don't have a partner. That's where having an apparatus or toys is really important. You can use these on a regular basis and keep everything very active. Now, the other part of it is that it is very important to understand that if there's any type of bleeding or spotting afterwards, don't just assume it's because of the things that you're doing. I would recommend getting that checked out with your doctor or gynecologist to make sure that there isn't something else going on there. That is very, very important. Don't just assume that that's a normal part of becoming active sexually again if it's been some time since you've had sex. So I just want to check my notes. As I say, I always make some notes because, and especially for this topic, because I feel that it's so important that I don't really want to miss anything. So I think that covers pretty much everything. Now, I do have a document that I've created. I just haven't created the link for it yet. So I do have a document that I've created. It does have this information in it as far as the lube and the book recommendation. So I will post that down in the comments. I'll pin that comment down below, and then you can download it. It's informative. I think it gives you a lot of good information. This is also something when I have somebody who feels that they want some extra guidance that I'm here to also do one-on-ones with female clients. And it's something that we can do virtually. But it is guidance that I do provide my clients as well too, as to how they can start to enjoy sex again while they're going through the stages of menopause. And even if you're postmenopause, I'm 15 years postmenopause, and I can still enjoy sex without any pain. It's something that I've gotten used to when I meet a new partner. I just say, so have you had sex with a woman who's postmenopause? And some of them will kind of blush. Some of them will say yes. Some of them will say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, give me a reference here. But it is something that I'm not shy to talk about. Of course, you can tell I've been sharing all this information with you very openly. But it is something that I feel is important for them to know. And I go, are you okay with me giving you some guidance so that you don't feel awkward and it's enjoyable for me? And I've been very lucky because anybody that I have mentioned that to, they said, yeah, absolutely. I don't want you to be in pain. I want you to be able to enjoy it. And it took me a while to get there as well too, to be open about that when I started going through menopause and everything started changing, especially once I became postmenopause and I could tell things were changing a bit more. So, but I do uh, keep myself active, utilizing my lube and my toys on a regular basis. So it's something that, yeah, that I want to keep my vagina in a state that it is, that I can still enjoy sex. Now, the other part that is important with this, I do get women coming to me who will say that they notice, when they sneeze, they might pee a little, or when they laugh, or cough, they kind of have to make sure they cross their legs, or, hold themselves so that they don't dribble. This is something else that I think is very important for women to know, that even if you're single, using some type of a toy, using the lube, and especially keeping the vaginal area active and keeping the muscles, um, the blood coming to the muscles, that keeps them knowing that they need to be used. That I've actually guided women to use toys, and they've noticed that their incontinence has improved. Um, and there's the other part of it as well too, that if we don't use this, there is the chance of your uterus prolapsing, which means it starts to come down through the vagina, or your bladder prolapsing. And they can be fixed with surgery. But by doing this, this is something that, kind of gives you an assurance that that potentially isn't going to happen. I hear a lot of people talk about, well, just do your pelvic floor exercises, just do yoga, do your Kegels. You still need to be utilizing something to keep those vaginal muscles more active. And that's where the lube and an apparatus or a toy can really help to support all of those other things that you're doing. I'm not saying that those are wrong. This is just further support. And it's like anything. If you think about any muscle that's not used for any length of time, it's going to start to basically atrophy. It's not going to be as strong. And even our skin, if we're showing our skin that that area still is going to have contact, that keeps the blood flow coming to the skin and coming to that area. So I think that's everything that I wanted to say. The guide it's fairly detailed, not extremely detailed, but fairly detailed. And it even provides some guidance around, foods that can help to support you as well too. Supplementation, those types of things. So anyway, there we go. A very personable topic, sometimes a bit of a taboo topic. Again, I'm not the least bit shy to talk about these things. I don't have any comments, and I completely get that. But if you do have questions, or if you do have comments, feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm here to support you. I'm here to answer those questions. And this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is a very natural part of our transition through menopause. There is nothing wrong with you, and there is hope. You can enjoy sex as long as you want to, but there are certain things you need to do to support your body. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We're allowed to do those things that are best for us and for our body. Thank you for joining. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you again next week. Bye.